All right, guys, I finally got some frame parts back from the sandblaster, which means it's time to start fabricating the custom frame for my HeavyHaul ToterHome. However, I'm going to take all the industry standard protocols on how to engineer a semi-truck frame and throw that all out the window because I got beef with the industry, and here's why. First off, this truck is going to be very long and built for heavy haul applications, so I need a strong frame. However, everywhere else I look, with all these other semi-trucks on the road, if you need a stronger frame, the go-to solution is to just start sleeving frame rails inside of frame rails. So I'm talking double frames, triple frames, which I think is just the most caveman solution to trying to get a stronger frame. For starters, it's an inefficient use of weight because you're trying to have this strong frame to span between your axles so you don't have a frame that sags. But then you end up with this really thick amount of frame holding your axles together, and you don't really need that much strength in that area. But even worse than that point is this. This little frame cutoff section is technically not double framed, except it showcases my main issue with double frame. And look at all this corrosion. This is my issue. This is where you had a layer of steel sleeved up against the frame rail, and look at the ridiculous amount of corrosion that stems from that. This is because moisture can't help itself but wedge in between these layers and just start corroding it out, which I think this is egregious that manufacturers are sending frames out like this from the factory and they just don't have longevity. It's not like the manufacturers really care about getting their trucks to last more than 1 or 2 decades because they want you buying new trucks. But you end up with these older frame rails just rotting away whenever you have this sort of metal sleeved up against other metal. And when you have a double frame or a triple frame, your whole frame rail's like that. And this truck that I'm building is something that I'll never sell, and I want to be useful for the rest of my life pretty much. So I need some real longevity out of it, which means there's no way I'm going to be touching double frame or triple frame design styles. So even though double framing and triple framing is the industry standard way to go and the proven design, I think all it proves is that it sucks. So I want nothing to do with it. Here's another gripe I have with C-channel frames, and that's that they're flexy. As shown by my OBS here, with its C-channel frame, you can see how much this body line will deflect as the whole frame under the truck is twisting, which isn't the end of the world. C-channel frames hold trucks together fine, but having a frame that flexes, like all semi-trucks are designed to do, ends up putting a damper on some design characteristics I want to have with my HeavyHaul ToterHome. So the reason why having a flexible frame that's articulating cramps my style is because I want to use square tube cross members, except square tube cross members fight against frame flex. At the very rear of the truck, I want a nice beefy bumper that houses a nice strong pintle hitch, and that'll all be made out of square tube. I don't know how much I'll use a pintle hitch because this truck will normally just be hitched up with trailers that utilize a fifth wheel plate, but it'll still be nice to have a pintle hitch stashed back there. Also, I want the front end of my truck also extremely strong, built out of square tube, because I'm running a cab over cab, so that doesn't give me any sort of crumple zone and leeway when crashing into something. And the whole rig's also going to be extremely heavy overall when I'm hitched up to a loaded trailer. So I want to have a beefy front end to where I can kind of just plow through everything that gets in my way. Because if a little car pulls out in front of me, yes, I'm going to slam on my brakes, but I don't really want to swerve the whole rig and risk losing control of my rig. So I'm going to have a nice beefy front end so I can kind of just gently push anything that's in my way. So let's make a deal that you guys just never pull out in front of me in your little cars. Now normally semi-truck cross members are designed with 3 planes. So you have 1, 2, and 3. So that's different than square tubing, which has a 4th plane involved, and that 4th plane really helps to tie everything together and make it rigid. Whereas a 3-plane cross member like this will definitely flex and twist like this. So as your frame rails are doing their warping up and down, these cross members are twisting as well. Now hey, the best way to do a rigid frame is to just do a box frame rather than C-channel frame rails. However, box frame has some limitations that I don't care for, such as it's very easy for water and dirt to get inside your box, and then that moisture sits in there and corrodes your box frame from the inside out. Also, box frames are kind of less convenient to bolt things up to, such as these suspension brackets here. As you can see, when you have just a nice C-channel frame rail, it's very easy to just bolt those on nice and secure, rather than trying to pass a bolt all the way through a box frame to where I would probably need to weld in a tube insert to keep the box from collapsing. Now with these military trucks that I robbed these frame rails out of, they are C-channel frame rails, except those trucks really hardly flex at all. And that's due to them using square tube cross members, as well as just these axle assemblies themselves that bolt to the frame rails are very rigid units. So they're going to fight the frames from deflecting as is. So those trucks go to show that you can take C-channel frame rails and get them to not twist and deflect, but you need square tube cross members, and they're really relying on those rigid axle assemblies. So when I use normal semi-truck axles, I'm going to only be relying on square tube cross members, which that design is going to put pressure points on every point that the cross member interacts with the frame rails. So as they're trying to twist, there's going to be pressure points with where those cross members bolt up to the frames. That's why you have to have a nut and bolt connection there to allow for some micro flexing rather than just welding a cross member straight to a frame, because those welds would eventually crack and fatigue. So that's why I'm going with a hybrid design that combines the benefits of C-channel frame rails with the rigidity of a box frame. What I'm referring to is a torque tube, which is something I've seen incorporated into some gooseneck trailer designs to keep them from being so floppy. This is a gooseneck trailer that does not have a torque tube. And as you can see, it is so ridiculously loosey-goosey. All right, what's better than one torque tube? Two torque tubes. So here's the gist of my design. It features this main solid core that has these two lengthwise square tube pieces that slot into the stock super strong square cross members that were featured on the military trucks. So all those square tubing components will be welded solid together and then bolt to the C-channel frame rails. And when those outside frame rails extend past that real solid core, they may be a little bit susceptible to flexing a little bit, but these square cross members that'll continue down the whole length will help to encourage everything to remain rigid. So those three little square cross members are positioned right where they need to be to tie in the three rear drive axles. And being that one small cross member is so close to that big cross member, I went ahead and continued the lengthwise square tubes to just crash into that little cross member and taper and tie into that nicely. But I did have to keep that small cross member and big cross member separated. I couldn't kind of combine those two things because they serve different functions, and I couldn't have the bolt pattern that bolts the suspension hanger interfere with the bolt pattern that bolts that main cross member to the frame rails. So moving up to the front, there's no more cross members modeled at the moment, but at the very front will be tied together with a very strong cross member assembly, whole front bumper assembly. And then the engine and transmission also slots down into this gap, so I'll try to fit a couple more cross members throughout that span, but we'll just have to wait till the engine and transmission is laid in there and see where we can sneak cross members above the transmission and below the engine and wherever that works out. And then in the rear, I don't have the rear bumper hitch cross member modeled, but that'll end up being designed really beefy. So that's the main gist of how I'm having this hybrid design. They'll keep it nice and rigid with that main core square tubing holding things together, and then other square tubing cross members continuing to keep things rigid throughout the whole length of the frame. All right, sorry for rambling so much. I'm ready to start cutting and welding some metal together, but hopefully that gives a complete comprehensive explanation as to why I'm going with the custom design that I'm going with. And even though it veers way off of the industry standard designs you see all over the place, I think it's going to end up working really well for my application. Here's one of the factory cross members out of the 7-ton military trucks that we tore down for these frames. So I'm definitely going to reuse this because it's really strong, beefy square tube. And then we'll have those additional lengthwise steel square tubes that are going to slot down into here. So I have these trace marks here. So we got to notch out a big section for that to run through. And I have a metal blade in the circular saw, so I'll start gnawing through this. All right, the straight lines are cut in there. Now I'm going to get the plasma cutter involved and freehand this radius. And I also left a little nub, if you can see right there, that I didn't cut through yet, because if I would, that would have pinched down on my blade and seized up my cutting blade, so I'll also plasma cut through those little bits. Now the frame design I decided to go with for this truck is unique and unproven, which makes it a bit of a gamble. But sometimes in life when you're feeling confident about something, it's time to make that bet. Which makes this a perfect time to tell you guys about the sponsor of today's video, DraftKings, as they've jumped in to help support this project that I'm betting on will turn out great. DraftKings Sportsbook is the place to be if you want to level up the excitement when tuning into your favorite sporting events. And as for fight fans, now's the perfect time to get in on the action with UFC 318 coming right up, as every moment in the octagon matters when there's high stakes matchups and major title implications. Right now, new customers who bet just $5 gets $150 in bonus bets instantly, so no matter who you're backing at UFC 318, now's your shot to apply these bonus bets to whoever you think will seize the win. You can also stay in on the action and use your $150 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout, and combine multiple bets together from the same game. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers can use my promo code GOODRICH and bet just $5 on any wager and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code GOODRICH, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. So thank you, DraftKings, for sponsoring today's video. And now, let's get back to seeing if my gamble with this frame design is going to pay off. Here are my two torque tubes, made out of 6" by 6" by 1/4" thick steel. Now I need to cut out this custom angle design that ties in one of those cross members. It cuts out like this. I use a circular saw with a cutting blade that has teeth designed for steel, and then I use a plasma cutter to do the radius and knock through the little junctions there. And then that pattern allows the cross member to settle in there like that. And then there's plates that'll cap this off and tie it all together and seal things up. I did also go through with a wire wheel to polish up the areas that are going to be junction points for where this cross member and square tube meet. So then we'll have some extra clean metal for laying down a really big strong weld to tie that all together really solid. Keep in mind, I'm going to be building this frame upside down. That's going to help with the construction process a bit, such as just being able to drop cross members in like this. And it's also going to come in handy for the next frame iteration I have planned, which we won't get to that part in this video, but we'll keep working on this frame in the next video or two. And the design of this frame is actually going to end up getting even more exotic. All right, now it's time for me to tweak out and get everything level and square and tacked together. So I'll join back with you guys after I'm done with all that. Alrighty, inside this box are all the custom metal plates and brackets that we need to tie this truck frame together, and they've all been provided by Send Cut Send. So I'm super thankful that Send Cut Send stepped in to support this project, because these are a bunch of perfect metal plates that would have been a pain to cut out by hand, especially because there's a lot of repeated parts that I needed multiple of, and I needed with really exact precision. So having Send Cut Send cut all these out with their laser cutters was exactly what I needed. For example, right here is a custom bracket that'll tie all 4 rows of frame rails together, as well as a bunch of these plates that'll weld to our frame and provide bolt holes to bolt our cross members to. And everything that's structural, I'm making out a 3/8 thick plate, so everything will be super strong. They also cut out fish plates to splice the frame together, as well as weird custom little cap pieces to enclose the box section of the frame, so it's completely sealed from the outside world and any moisture can't get in it. So if you guys ever want some perfect custom design parts involved in your projects, Send Cut Send makes it super easy to upload those files to their website, select what kind of metal you want cut out, and then they're super quick and we'll get to your parts in 1 to 2 days and get them shipped out. Send Cut Send has been the perfect service to help me out with my projects, because they can also bend metal brackets and do water jetting and powder coating and plenty of other things. So if you want to learn more about them, you can check out the link in my description below to get a 15% off discount off your order. So thank you Sincut Sin for sponsoring these parts, because I'm excited to start welding them on right now. I've got this laser cut part positioned now. I did design it with the 1/8 inch gap all the way around, so that gives a gap for the weld to really get down into, which that also entails me putting these washers in here to space it up this way a little bit. And I have it stabilized with these magnets. Alright, as far as frame construction for this video goes, I think I'm going to stop here because I do need to shift my attention to my excavator. But hey, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, because in the next video we're going to make a lot more progress with this frame. And we're also going to start on the other unique design features that I haven't shared with you guys yet. Alright, anybody that's been watching my videos lately knows that we've kind of been battling this loose track on my excavator, because on this side the track tensioner is broken. And although this machine is kind of too old and cheap to really justify pouring in the time and money to rebuilding this whole tensioner setup, it's still been progressively becoming too much of an issue with having this track loose, to where I do need to do some sort of quick easy fix on it. And for this task I need this idler out of here so I can clean it up and weld on it. So let's pop this track off and get that whole idler pulley slid out of there. That felt wrong pulling it off on purpose, but it's for the better. See if this idler will flop out of here. There we go. Alright, here's the plan now. I got this metal all shined up. I'm going to weld this chain into this groove, and then that's going to reach out and hook onto a hook on the whole undercarriage. So I have a chain on either side holding this idler forward. And because we have all these links to hook into a slot up front, we'll have that adjustability link by link. All right, those chains are in. Cut to the equal length and weld it on in there. It should hold solid. Now I'm going to cut up this thick chunk of metal. I'll cut in some slots for this chain to slot into. And then there'll be a whole chunk of this metal welded to the excavator. That should end up pretty strong for holding that chain. Okay, time to see if we can two-person this idler. Alright, hold on. Alright, we're going to muster up more strength this time. We'll do this. 1, 2, 3. Yes! Yeah! Whoa! Go!
Why isn't it going?
I guess it'll stick. It's this lip.
Oh.
Yeah, this whole lip.
Okay.
Yeah, so we need probably grip in that same spot.
Wrong way.
Okay, what do we need to... Game plan. So we have this yellow strap tied to the chain, and we're hoping we can lift up with the bucket and curl with the bucket, and this whole thing will pull forward and it'll slot it down into a slot, but we'll figure out as we go. Catch the link. just track forward. Let's see what happens. Slightly. Yeah, more. Are you doing both? Do both tracks.
Okay. It's hard to get that exactly smooth.
Okay. Okay, it actually fell in. All right, that modification did help out a lot with tightening up that track, so I'll get some runtime on it and we'll see if that actually holds up or if we have to go back to the drawing board. It is kind of hard to imagine just how much force is being exerted on that idler, so we'll see if that setup is strong enough or if we need to beef it up in the future. So I'll see you in the next video.